Hello, it's your host Miłosz Wieczór, and you're listening to episode 33 of the Free Space Invaders podcast. First episode of season 5, in fact. We've got this far. Today I'm talking to Wonpil Im, who holds the position of the Presidential Endowed Chair in Health at the Department of Biological Sciences and Bioengineering at Lehigh University. I bet our faithful listeners will recognize Wonpil's role as the main developer and maintainer of CHARMM-GUI. But as we discussed in the podcast, this is no coincidence, as the many years of working with CHARMM, the program, not the force field, that inspired Wonpil to work on automating and streamlining the multi-step workflows into a tool many of us use almost daily. In the meantime, Wonpil's group keeps pushing the boundaries of custom and complex membrane systems, most recently presenting an astonishingly detailed model of the mycobacterial membrane. So we first discuss the origin story of CHARMM-GUI, going back to Wonpil's time in Korea and later in the US, working on implicit solvent models for CHARMM. Throughout the years, a series of high-profile mentors, first Yong-Do Won, then Benoit Roux, and finally Charlie Brooks, all major contributors to the CHARMM project, put Wonpil on the right path to organize this big effort of standardization and automation of MD inputs and system setups. It turns out it was surprisingly hard to publish the original paper, which you might not guess, given that it's accumulated 10,000 citations in the last 18 years. But now that CHARMM-GUI is truly coming of age, the latest burning question is, how do we ensure its long-term survival and development? And we spent some time touching upon this question as well. But I should let Wonpil tell the story himself. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Wonpil Im, nice to have you on the podcast.
Hi, nice to be here.
Lovely. Yeah. So, Wonpil, it's undeniable that people will instantly associate your name with CHARMM-GUI, a project that you spearheaded about 2 decades ago already. But this development came on top of another decade of your cutting-edge research on transmembrane proteins and their physical description as well. Do you mind sharing the story behind it all and how the web server came to life?
People often ask such question in a private setting. Then I just tell them a true story, hopefully be a true story. A lot of people may not know that I did my bachelor degree and actually a master degree back in Korea, Hanyang University. And during actually my master degree, I worked with Professor Yong-Do Won, who was a CHARMM manager at that time. So he actually, at that time, more than 30 years ago, at that time, how CHARMM worked is every kind of 6 months, developers send the code to the manager, and manager actually merge everything to the main branch. I would say main branch because it's a modern terminology already now. So there was no Git or anything like that. So a human has to actually merge a code and, do the testing and everything. Yong-Do was a manager and did such job. So he knew a lot of actually CHARMM developers and everyone. So, and even at that time, somehow I started to look at crystal code. It's a kind of very complicated CHARMM code dealing with all kinds of crystal manipulation and building crystal images and those things. And that actually connected me to my PhD mentor, Benoit Roux. So I did my PhD with Benoit. And there, with Benoit, I did many things. People now, they look at me, that person is just CHARMM-GUI, but back then I work on a Poisson-Boltzmann equation, the continuum electrostatics, and I also did generalized solvent boundary potential, where one can only simulate small portion of interest, treating the rest as a continuum electrostatics. I also did a grand canonical Monte Carlo and Brownian dynamics for ion channel. And those things are part of the CHARMM, actually a PBQ, GSBP was part of CHARMM, so I contribute to CHARMM. And the one thing I did with Benoit was a membrane protein simulation. I remember that my paper, OMPF, at that time, we actually used a supercomputer for 5 months for 5 nanoseconds. It was actually one of the largest systems at that time. So, that time I learned all the details, how you build all atom protein membrane systems using all the CHARMM script. There was actually 22 steps of CHARMM script. Finishing one step, sending information to the next step. So you had to go through all 22 steps, okay? And that actually became later to a membrane builder in CHARMM-GUI. Actually, I shrink that into 6 steps. And after PhD, I had several opportunities for my postdoctoral studies, but then I joined actually a professor, Charlie Brooks, as a postdoc. And at that time also I worked on CHARMM. I have developed a GBSW, generalized bond, with a simple switching function. So it's also continuum electrostatics. So at that time, some people actually called me because I did Poisson-Boltzmann continuum electrostatics during my PhD, and I did generalized bond continuum electrostatics during my postdoc. Some people say, wow, Wonpil, you are born to be implicit modeler. Remember my last name, Im? Anyway, so this thing, then I started my lab at the University of Kansas in 2005. So I finished my PhD 2002, 3 years of postdoc, and I got my job. The reason that I'm telling you this story is my master degree mentor, Young-Do Won, CHARMM manager, and PhD mentor, Benoit Roux, also CHARMM main developer, and postdoc mentor, Charles Brooks, also CHARMM main developer. So when I went to, at some point, CHARMM meeting, I saw all three my mentors. So I thought that I got a lot of things from the CHARMM, and I contribute to CHARMM, but I also feel that I got a lot of things from CHARMM. So the CHARMM-GUI development project started in 2006 with my hope that I can actually now contribute back to the CHARMM community. Okay? So that's how we started in 20 years ago now, right? And at that time, I did not think about that this project could be like such a big project. And, I had to put a lot of effort on that. I had an idea, but I didn't know how to do the web programming. So that I actually recruited one person from Korea. That person was actually Sun Wan-jo, who created the CHARMM-GUI. Yeah. So that was kind of a long story, but I think that's also a true story, I would say. Yeah.
Well, it ended up being super impactful, right? I still have scientific friends who, when you look at their desktops, they're mostly running CHARMM-GUI most of the time.
Well, so, I mean, at that time when we started the CHARMM-GUI project, obviously, we only focus on CHARMM, all right?
Yes.
And the big things happen to me, big change happened to me. It's about 2009 or 2010. That time when I went to a CHARMM meeting, we had the CHARMM meeting every summer. And I was actually shocked because all major CHARMM developers are using NAMD for simulation. Because the CHARMM, I think I probably mentioned this to you. This is interesting, actually, human psychology that even in the simulation community, they use one program and then they find that another program is faster. Then people switch that very quickly. Yeah.
I have to say, I never used CHARMM as a program just because of that. Like in the time I started running simulations, this was already common knowledge.
Probably. CHARMM was the only simulation program. And I think through the CHARMM development project, actually, we as a developer, we made a couple of mistakes, but I don't want to actually mention that today. For this this interview, but that's the time that I realized that, we also need to provide input for other simulation programs. So that's what we started to provide, namely simulation input in CHARMM-GUI. And, then we have this 2016 paper, CHARMM-GUI input paper, where we start to provide the GROMACS and Amber and OpenMM and later actually LAMMPS and, Tinker. So we now cover all major simulation programs. It's only later, it's 2020 that we started to provide also Amber force field. So now we provide all major force field and also cover also all major simulation programs. That was kind of history, how things evolve. Yeah.
Right. And it led to a very good outcome, which is the standardization of preparation workflows, right? Because you can only have a stable standard workflow if it comes from a single source, so to say. And I think that really contributed to the validity of simulations.
Yeah, exactly right. In a sense that we had to actually spend a lot of time, even within the CHARMM community, what would be the best cutoff distance, and it was never actually standard. And still people used different, but at least we provide, okay, this is acceptable options, right? For non-bounded setting and those things, yeah.
Yeah, because there's a lot of work now on community broad papers and recommendations and standards, but it's really hard to integrate all this knowledge unless you have a single place that actually prepares it for you in the right way. And also there are so many cases that, might be different for any number of reasons, right? So like it's such a complicated task to find a universal set of settings that works across all the crazy systems that people will decide to prepare one day.
Yeah, exactly.
How did you approach that?
So, we test a lot, to be honest. So, and people sometimes actually think that it is easy to actually release just one module in CHARMM-GUI, but we generally spend at least 2-3 years to release one module. The most time we actually spend is sometimes reproducing the previous papers. So it's not that easy. And we actually had to fine tune many things inside to make sure that it provides what would be called a standard.
Yeah, I see. What are the modules that you're maybe either the most excited about or the most proud of, if you mind?
Well, for now, obviously the people are use membrane builder. That's one of the most, I think the best seller in CHARMM-GUI.
Yes.
And also the glycan reader and modular that we put a lot of effort. So it's funny that our first membrane builder paper was published in 2007, if I believe, in PLOS ONE. It was very difficult to publish that paper because at that time, the people, probably the reviewers and the professors, right, they thought that, well, this is not a paper. Right? This cannot be a paper.
Imagine.
So we got a lot of rejection, right? And because that's the, any so-called computational person, they should not use such actually tool. They should do everything by themselves, right? So we got a rejection from many journals, and then we finally was able to publish that paper in PLOS ONE. After we published that paper, we start to see many other actually similar membrane builder kind of web servers and publications that they publish it in a much better journal. That's fine. But in some sense, like we initiate things and some people, they copy, and I don't really care and improve. That's better. So we initiate things or automate titled modeling and simulations of complex biological system. And people actually, based on that, they also develop other things. So I think it's, it's a good system in some sense.
Well,
yeah.
The journals for sure lost a lot of citations by rejecting that paper. If that's what they care about.
Now I think a lot of journals, they welcome CHARMM-GUI paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They would love to have that in there.
Yeah. So I think there are many modules that I am proud, but I think all the modules in CHARMM-GUI, but especially a membrane builder and glycan reader and modeler, and also the protein ligand, the system buildings. And I realized that, and still how hard to actually model the ligand, a small molecule. People, now if you use a CHARMM-GUI, sometimes it's easy, and they do not appreciate, but it's not a trivial system, trivial task even, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned glycan builder, and the last talk that you gave that I saw was mostly focused on glycans. So that's your shift, not fully away from membranes, right? But still like merging membranes with glycans, which is a very interesting computation these days. And it's very interesting that, when I think about how I would approach modeling glycans, I would probably have no idea. So it's really incredible that you put together this whole tool to account for the full complexity of glycans, because the system that you were modeling, which are mycoplasma membranes, are really crazily complicated by the presence of glycans, right? Like, what is the thing with glycans that they get so crazy complicated?
I mean, it's a biology question, so I do not know about such a question. But I actually, human cells and virus, all outsiders are full of sugars and glycans, carbohydrate, right? They are all different names of things, oligosaccharide, right? Saccharide, carbohydrate, sugar, glycans. And in terms of glycan modeler, so we actually started early on. It's 2011 or 2010. Sonan developed this very smart way of recognizing glycans in the PDB. But at that time, it was impossible to actually look at, and then there were actually like 30-40% of misnaming of that. And then there was actually amazing thing that Sonan did 2011. Then 2018, we actually add a modeler that people can add more sugars. Also, 2019, that we released how people can model the lipopolysaccharide that having a lipid A, inner and outer cores and O antigens. So that actually gave us confidence that we can now attack this more complicated mycobacterial membrane systems.
Yeah, it sometimes feels like, the community doesn't go someplace if the tools are not ready, right? So by creating the tools, you actually enabled a lot of people. That was very visible during the COVID era, right? That people suddenly were able to take this and kind of put the glycans in the spotlight.
So I think so we have been actually developing these glycan tools and modeling tools, but we also see that the increase of actually usage of glycan reader and modelers in CHARMM-GUI after COVID, after we actually demonstrate and others demonstrate that you can build very complex spike protein with the glycans, and also nowadays HIV envelope proteins and more other things, right? So then with the tools, now people can ask more questions related to glycoproteins and glycopeptide, right? So they come to CHARMM-GUI.
I think same goes for, let's say, computational lipidomics, or I don't know how to call it, but the research in complex membrane science, let's call it, right? So the complexification of membrane models. I remember we always use, DPPC, DPPE mixtures or something that was
POPC.
very model exactly. A model membrane to study some sort of simple experimental setup. But now we also got to this point where you can actually have a fully complex membrane containing 20 components and see the biological effects of, how that affects the property.
Yes. I mean, people sometimes forget about this history, right? So 2007, we published a membrane builder paper, the first membrane builder paper. At that time, we provide 3 lipid types, DMPC, DPPC, POPC, and only homogeneous, a single lipid component. And 2 years later, 2009, In collaboration with Jeff Clouda, we published second membrane builder paper. At that time, we provide the membrane only and also protein membrane with the mixtures. So we demonstrate that we can actually mix 3 lipid types. At that time, it was like a kind of first, many component mixed systems, right? And later on, now, as we added more biologically important lipid types, people can really build all kinds of membrane systems. If they know the composition, that's the hard part because it's very difficult to know the composition. Although we have a lipidomics, it's still very difficult to know. And if they know what would be the reasonable size, I think the system can be very realistic. Yeah. And then I would say that nowadays we all talk about big systems and larger systems, but I think there are a lot of questions we still need to address with the small systems. Yeah,
that's true. But do you think it made a big difference in terms of the biology of it? I remember you were enumerating those different lipid types that some of them are positioned strictly inside the membrane, some of them are peripheral. Like how different complex membrane can get compared to those simple model single or 2 component systems in terms of properties, in terms of like biological relevance?
It is really depends on the questions that you would like to address, right? If you don't need such a complex system, then you don't need. But when you are looking at some influence of outer leaflet into the inner leaflet, we have been actually doing this research over 2 years, induced odor, meaning that in general, in plasma membrane, outer leaflet is much more odor than the inner leaflet, and that actually induced odor in the inner leaflet. To actually simulate those, you need to have a different lipid composition. That's the only thing you can actually get. So, and also to study a specific protein-lipid interaction. And, some people are interested among many lipid types, right? Which lipids are actually specifically interact with a certain site of proteins, right? That you need to have more realistic different lipid types, yeah.
Right, there were all those cholesterol binding,
yes, and P binding, PIPS binding, yeah.
And so all the signaling in the cell ultimately depends on that to some extent.
Right, and people are actually also very interested about the coupling between the different lipid. Most lipid membranes are like plasma membrane is asymmetric. We still need to learn how to actually build the asymmetric systems, but I think these asymmetric systems, then there are certain couplings between inner lipid and outer lipid, and those things actually definitely need different lipid compositions.
Yeah, there's also all these considerations of differential lateral pressures, right? And so on. So like a lot of technical things I imagine you have to deal with when you're working with those asymmetric membranes. How complicated can it get to like set up such a system in a consistent way, right? So that it doesn't deform or explode.
Right. I think the best way and the most practical way to build a realistic asymmetric system that we learn is to have you simulate each leaflet separately, okay? And then you get a system size. So you match the system size of polyplet and system size of low leaflet. I think that's what we think the best way to build an asymmetric system, and it's the most practical way of building an asymmetric system. Yeah.
I see it. Sounds like a lot of work, but probably, you have to take care of.
Yeah, because you have to simulate the outer leaflet symmetric and inner leaflet symmetric separately before you actually put them together. Yeah.
Right, and then wait for them to adjust to each other.
Sure, yeah.
Because, phase transitions and so on can also add its own layer of complexity. That's, a lot of things to think about when you want to start your lipid membrane simulation. Even when you have CHARMM-GUI.
Sure, yeah. Even before you come to CHARMM-GUI, you need to think about it, yeah.
That's very true. Yes. I think the complexity never ends, right? In biology, in that there are simple ways of running things and there are correct ways of running things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just science, right? In
Yeah.
one side, right, we push the boundary, right? And the other side, the details, right? And also fixing things, right? The way of doing something correctly, that could be found later than the first time. Like first time, you made a lot of mistake, but I think the first time you have to show that this is possible, right? And as more people are doing that, and they see some issues and they fix issues, and then, we advance the science more, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's quite exciting that we're getting to this point where we'll have actual repositories, right, of trajectories, and people will be able to figure out or find out about all the bugs and errors and issues that the people have been facing. So maybe that's going to make it easier to spot.
Yeah, I think
problems
the issue is that it's still impossible to deposit all the trajectories, right? So there is a still limitation, and in my view, I think the key issue in the reproducibility in science, especially in our field, simulation, is the sharing, actually, not just input, the starting, sharing how the system has been built. That's what I hope that the CHARMM-GUI can do in the future. We can talk about that probably in the later time about that, yeah.
Right. So like having a protocol that you just paste in a method that it was done with this kind of set of settings.
Well, I think more like I'm still trying to find a way to do this because it requires resources. And I think I hope to, in near future, I hope to provide a DOI from CHARMM-GUI.
Oh, I see. Because every time you change something on the web server, the protocol might change, right? So like someone who said, I use CHARMM-GUI might mean a different thing at a different time.
Yes. So that having all the system building and looking at that, knowing, how these guys build the system, details really matter. That does matter actually. So how you actually protonate, you terminize, and, which residue you protonate, deprotonate. Sometimes the people don't describe that all in the method section, right? It's tricky. But once you have all that with the force field at that time, and people put those DOI in their publication, right? One can always at least reproduce those, right?
And so it would link to the workflow, right? It would link to the complete.
The completeness and the input. So yeah, I think
that
that's
would be amazing.
Goal.
I think yes, that sounds like if you have the storage to do that, to like. To
that's the issue.
Every job indefinitely, because I don't know how long you can support.
Yeah, luckily, many countries develop this database for simulation trajectories, and compared to that, the input generation is.
That's true.
So I should communicate with them at some point. But I think the costly part is DOI generation. That's quite expensive.
Oh, really? I never thought of that. Yeah, that's a fair point. Maybe there's a simpler way.
It's not free. It's not free though.
Maybe there's a simpler way. Yeah. Maybe it doesn't have to be a DOI.
But I think DOI is nicer and it's permanent, right?
It's probably
people consider it to be a permanent.
Standard. Yes.
Yeah. So we'll see. Yeah.
Well, we're getting to the important or exciting part, which is, funding for all the resources that you provide. Because some people notice that CHARMM-GUI has been sending those calls for support. And, I think people mostly understand where it comes from. But yeah, there's this question of, if you have this level of a long-term strategic project that really so many people rely on, how do you make sure it gets funded? Or even, the increase in funding matches the increase in popularity, right? Because it's not just stable funding, but it's also kind of adjusting to the increased use. So how has it been going so far?
So let me tell you why we initiate that project first, okay? So some people nowadays, with these AI tools to create it's very easy to create a web server or database nowadays, right? Yeah.
Yes.
But I think some people may not appreciate how hard to maintain certain things, right? That's what I'm really proud that we have maintained CHARMM-GUI, right, for 20 years, almost nonstop. A lot of people contribute from my lab, CHARMM-GUI developers, and also managers. Also, the Lehigh University and the University of Kansas, the high performing computing manager, and also the community that they work with us to develop things and support CHARMM-GUI. We do have limitations, and also sometimes. So that's why now we actually limit the number of jobs one can submit to 3, and to make sure that most people can actually use CHARMM-GUI, not just a few people just dominate the CHARMM-GUI, submitting like 100 jobs at the same time, right? And also we view what will be the future, right? So, one clear future is the API, so that sometimes people complain that, oh, I have to click so many things, right?
I can relate, yes.
No, API would that be? And also it's not just system building and input generation. What I see is more like AI-driven tools are available. Like, even you think about AlphaFold and Boltz and many things, peptide design, protein design, those tools now can be integrated into CHARMM-GUI so that you can see the one place, you can do the modeling and simulation seamlessly. I think, okay, that's how I envision. And to do that, we need a better infrastructure. So that's why we initiate this fundraising, and we still a long way to go. But I guess I have a Lehigh institutional funding that I can add to that. But eventually, I hope that the community appreciate the CHARMM-GUI project and development efforts so that they can contribute to this fundraising effort so that it can be a community effort, right?
Yes, all the listeners are encouraged to contribute and to give back in proportion to the number of jobs they submitted.
Well, I mean, to be honest, CHARMM-GUI had never a long, actually, a downtime. Maybe just 1 hour for upgrade for certain things. We never had any downtime, actually, for 20 years. It's quite remarkable. People think that it will be there always, right? But it may not be. And then they may appreciate more. Then they may appreciate that, even very simple system is not that easy to actually build. Yeah.
Oh yes, you have to put together a membrane one by one, suddenly, one little bit at a time.
And also you can use other tools, but still the question is how reliable the system you built, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, over 20 years, we have actually a check. So I would say almost 99% of CHARMM-GUI errors are coming from just simply user side. It's very robust system, the CHARMM-GUI, now. Yeah.
How big is the infrastructure at the moment, if I can ask out of curiosity?
It is just, we have one server that has a 2 GPU card and 48 actually cores, CPU cores. Yeah.
Oh, really? That's
That's small,
That's
right?
small. I was expecting to be a small like server room or a mini cluster.
No. We have a www we call that is facing the public domain. We also have a beta CHARMM-GUI that we actually put our development before we release to www. Yeah.
I see. Yeah. So you can use the
I mean, the reason
one.
that we could maintain so many jobs, right, is it doesn't take a very long time to build. Sometimes very big system, people are sometimes crazy to build. So we support like a 5 million system. That's the max. I think, I'm not sure how many people in the world are interested in doing a 5 million simulation, 5 million
atoms, yeah.
Atoms simulations, right? I mean, because I believe there are a lot of biological questions and problems that one can address with a 1 million atom systems, right?
But if you ask the virology people, they're going to go, way
probably. But I think even then, I'm not sure. Anyway, so in most simulation jobs, building system actually could be done within 1 hour. Yeah. And I mentioned that to you, on average, there are 600 jobs every day completed, meaning that the system building and input generations done. Yeah.
That's impressive, yes.
Yeah. But we need a better GPU to support AI-driven tools so that, yeah.
I see, definitely. What are your words of wisdom for the folks out there, who are thinking they would love to start automating things? Like, what is a good time and a good strategy to automate workflows for people? Because we all have those workflows that we do, right? I have my own automation tools, and I also try to send them to the community, to whoever wants to use that. But, I think a lot of people are thinking of that. And what would be your advice to people who are thinking about that?
Well, I mean, definitely to make it a high throughput, you need to think about automated way of building things, right? But in most cases, though, that it is limited to certain things, cannot be. It's very difficult to generalize.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah. So, but I think within even a certain specific task, if you could automatize your process and do a high throughput, I think you should do that. Yeah, because it will make your life easy. I believe.
Yeah. Some things are just for us, right? And then the hard part is actually making it work for others, because the user experience is a big part of that.
Well, I think I just want to mention one thing that at least at the beginning, I did not develop CHARMM-GUI just for others. I developed the CHARMM-GUI for myself and also my lab. Because I knew it was so difficult to actually go through these scripts manually and change each thing, so that it was much easier for me to use CHARMM-GUI to build many systems and even for many labs. So, some people think, I know how to build these things, so I have to actually make things more automatized for other people. I'm not sure that's really a good idea. You want to automatize things and make things easy to use for yourself and your lab, then the other people will use it. If you make something, I made this thing for you, use it. But I'm, because I'm better, so I don't need to use that. That's not a good way to really develop a certain thing. So
that's a very fair point.
Yeah. So in CHARMM-GUI, every single module, we make sure that we develop things, and my lab actually use all the practical applications and projects. Yeah.
I see.
That's the only way you can make sure that you develop things, right?
Yeah. Because I do share this conviction that the best kind of tools are driven by real problems that we're solving first for ourselves.
Yeah, and then you need to think about a way to make it easier. And then you should feel that, oh, with this tool, I can do more, right? Then you can share. Then other people will appreciate.
Yeah. And get the feedback. I think how easy is it for you to get feedback from the community about, things to improve or things to fix? Are people happy to share those things all the time, or is it like you have to make an effort?
Now too many. I think we get a lot of questions. All the days we actually respond every questions through emails. Now we are getting less and we're getting lazy and less manpower. It's difficult, but we also have this CHARMM-GUI forum and frequent ask question FAQ or session. The issue is people do not look at those.
Yeah.
They ask same questions over and over and over. So
that's hard to
it's a less motivation. And then we know that most errors are not from CHARMM-GUI. So
it's your input, yes.
what can you do? So we still try to help, but less frequently, to be honest. I'm sorry to people who ask, but I think that's what we have developed this CHARMM-GUI forum so that hopefully people can help each other and they look at what has been posted, right?
Yes.
But the issue is, I think that's because people live in this AI GPT era, so that they just ask questions, right? They don't sometimes make their hands dirty, right?
Check the history on the forum before you post.
Yeah, but they don't do that because people are used to ask. Just ask, get answer, ask, get answer. That's the common practice nowadays, young scientists, right? I don't know whether it's good or bad, right? Yeah.
That's true. It's both. It goes both ways. And there's a kind of middle ground where it's very useful.
No, I think when we developed CHARMM-GUI, some people worried, some experts that think that, now everyone can do simulations, so we may lose our job. No, that's not true. CHARMM-GUI make things easy for beginners, but CHARMM-GUI also make the expert actually do more jobs.
Right. Okay, to wrap up, one more module that's coming to CHARMM-GUI soon. Is it going to be the AlphaFold module?
No. The module that will be released next week is mycobacterial lipid modeler.
Oh, yes.
So now you can build the most complex bacterial cell envelope by clicking.
Wow. It was incredible the way you presented it the last time. So, yeah.
But now you can build
use it. And I'm going to go there and try just for the sake of it. Okay.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Wonderful. So, Wonpil Im, it was great having you. Thank you for the history and for the outlook, and for a lot of hidden stories that people wouldn't know otherwise. It was a great conversation.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Hope that people can appreciate a little bit more CHARMM-GUI and our efforts. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Please appreciate and please contribute to the fundraiser.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening. See you in the next episode of Space Invaders.